The commemoration of the war's anniversary resulted in a ratcheting up of the fighting and an increase in the number of casualties suffered by the Russian occupiers. Over the course of just 2 days, the Russian army suffered the loss of over 1,000 soldiers, in addition to dozens of tanks and tons of equipment. It is abundantly clear that the armed forces place a high priority on important holidays and special occasions, as evidenced by these attacks and the spectacular operation that was carried out by the Ukrainian army on New Year's Day 2023. The same thing happened to the Russian army in the first few hours of 2023. In the previous year, they had suffered losses of hundreds of soldiers and tons of ammunition in the regions of Machika and Zapia. Let's look at the specifics of these assaults together on this day, which marks the anniversary of. In a post that was dated February 24, 2023, which was the anniversary of the war, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine has announced that they have carried out a total of 14 attacks on important points belonging to the Russian invaders. These attacks were carried out at various locations across It is estimated that these regions are the cities and domestic areas. And the hands come blast where the war is raging, despite the fact that the General Staff did not disclose the regions where the attacks was carried out. This is due to the fact that Russian invaders have been trying to capture these regions for months. However, the Russian invaders are unable to reach their objectives because the Ukrainian army is able to successfully defend and attack their position. In a statement, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine stated their position. Our military aircraft were able to conduct 14 strikes in a single day against the areas where the invaders had concentrated their troops and military supplies. The Russian invaders suffered significant casualties as a result of the strikes which targeted military personnel and equipment. It is common knowledge that the Russian army suffers from a severe lack of both personnel and equipment. Kremlin, the head of the Wagner group, said not having enough weapons and ammunition caused him to lose hundreds of soldiers. He made this statement not too long ago. In addition to that, images of the dead bodies of these soldiers were disseminated across various social media platforms. The Ukrainian army, using a strategic plan as a guide, once again attacked the regions where the Russian invaders would have the greatest chance of being killed or endured. In the same statement, the Ukrainian General Staff mentioned that one of the Russian invaders' Mi-23 attack helicopters and one of their Lancet unmanned aerial vehicles were shot down. The Russian invaders were taken aback by the fact that they were subjected to 14 attacks in just one. The Ukrainian army carried out a more comprehensive operation the following day, which caused the Russian invaders a nightmarish experience. The Ukrainian General Staff announced on February 25 that the Ukrainian Air Force had successfully struck 20 points belonging to the Russian invaders. It was also stated that there were points of concentration of military power, ammunition, depots, and control points for artillery and rocket units in these areas. In addition to this, it was stated that 2 strikes were conducted against anti-aircraft missile systems as a direct result of the attacks carried out by the Ukrainian Air Force. The Russian military suffered the loss of a total of 4 drones, 1 Orlan 10, 2 Lancet, 3 and 1 all during the first few days of the second year of the war. A Mi-24 attack helicopter was also successfully taken out of service. The Ukrainian resistance group was successful in carrying out yet another operation since the beginning of Russia's occupation of Ukraine. Sabotage. Partisan and resistance groups within Ukraine have been active participants in a wide variety of crucial operations, at the same time that the Russian people are holding protests and demonstrations in which they are constantly criticizing Putin's decision to invade. The Ukrainian people are showing their support for the resistance that is being put up by the Ukrainian army. The current situation demonstrates that the Ukrainian armed forces, along with the support of the Ukrainian people, have put up outstanding resistance miracle, which was a turning point in was the location of one of these operations, which was carried out there the other day. The mayor of Mariupol, Petro Andreaschenko, issued a statement in accordance with the contents of this statement. A Ukrainian resistance group in my family was responsible for blowing up an ammunition depot belonging to the Russian occupiers. There are rumors that this devil is quite large and harbors a substantial quantity of it. In point of fact, Andreaschenko occupied that position. Explosions continued to rock the region for the better part of a week. According to Andreaschenko, the attack resulted in the deaths of approximately 50 Russian soldiers and left dozens of other soldiers with serious wounds. Because of these casualties, it does not appear that the Russian army will be able to maintain its occupation for much. Russia has made a concerted effort to cover up its defeats at the hands of the Ukrainian army. The fact that Putin maintained control over the majority of Russian media outlets was the single most important factor in covering up the losses. Since the beginning of the conflict, Putin has ordered the closure of dozens of channels that reported on anti- and Ukrainian attacks. These channels had been reporting on the On the other hand, a recent turn of events demonstrated that the Russian media could not continue to be indifferent to the growing number of casualties. In addition, this new information was broadcast on the state-run Russian television channel. According to a report on a state-run Russian television channel, the Ukrainian army reportedly fired 4 shells with a caliber of 155 millimeters at a region within. In addition to this, it is said that it opened fire in the direction of the village of Tau, which is located in the Belgorod Garage, Oblast of Russia. This demonstrates that the Ukrainian army is making progress toward military positions on Russian territory. By moving through the occupied territories, the exhaustion of the Russian army is now readily apparent in even the state-run. The Russian television network has acknowledged Russia's state of exhaustion to the point where it is reporting on the assaults launched by the Ukrainian military. The Russian army is losing a growing number of soldiers and supplies on a daily basis, including both personnel and ammunition. A significant number of people who were on Putin's side during the early stages of the invasion of Ukraine now want the conflict to come to, because it is inconceivable that the Russian army would suffer such losses. The following is a rundown of the casualties suffered by the Russian army over the course of 1 year. 147,470 soldiers and 3,375 tanks make up the army. 6,609 armored combat vehicles were. 2,373 artillery systems, 475 systems for reactive firefighting, 247 air defense systems, 299 aircraft, 288 helicopters, 5,235 tanks and other automotive equipment, 18 military ships and boats, 873 cruise missiles, 2030 unmanned area vehicle, and 2035 unmanned ground vehicles, 230 unique machines, as well as 4 functional tactile missile complexes. It is likely that the number of casualties suffered by the Russian armed forces will continue to rise as long as Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia, does not reverse his decision to invade Ukraine. This is due to the assistance that Western and European nations are providing to the Ukrainian armed forces, which are growing stronger since the beginning of the conflict. The United States in particular has provided and continues to provide material, humanitarian, and military assistance to Ukraine. The other day, on the website of the United States Department of State, an announcement was made regarding a new strain of this AIDS virus. As a direct result of this, the United States government will provide financial assistance to the Ukrainian government in the amount of more than $10 billion. The following is a transcription of the statement that was published on the website of the ministry on February 24, 2023. We are pleased to announce today, in conjunction with the United States Agency for International Development and the Department that we will be providing the Ukrainian government with assistance totaling over $10 billion. This assistance will be provided in the form of budget support as well as additional economic assistance. However, Western and European nations will not stop providing financial assistance to Ukraine. The Russian military is expressing concern because there is not a single nation that is providing assistance to, and the vast majority of countries around the world have sanctioned Russia. At the same time, the people of Russia want the war to be over, and young people in Russia are organizing demonstrations to oppose being drafted into the military. This indicates that the Russian military, which is already at a low strength, will soon face even greater challenge. It appears that Russian leader of Vladimir Putin will not be successful against Ukraine. Given the country's dwindling military and growing public opposition to occupation, what kind of ideas do you have? Will Putin still be fighting after the first year of the war has passed? What are your thoughts on the successful offensive operations carried out by the Ukrainian army? How will the Russian army make up for the casualties it has? Please enlighten us with your thoughts. You can show your support for the team at App Daily News by clicking the Super Things button, and you can follow us to stay up to date on the latest information. All of the relevant studies videos are owned by the Anchor Daily News channel on YouTube. We do not rely on any other social media public, and our usernames for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook are all located at the App Daily News website. We take legal action against every website and channel that utilizes it without our authorization. The news was not good for Putin. Your airplane has received a significant amount of assistance from Turkey. There have been reports of Turkish military convoys arriving at the Russian. Nobody can predict what Vladimir Putin will do now that he has lost the one country in the West with which he could potentially form an alliance, the United States. It would appear that this move by Turkey deals a significant blow to Putin. There is only one weapon that has performed exceptionally well throughout the entirety of the conflict that has been going on between Russia and Ukraine because of this weapon. The course of the war on the Ukrainian side has been significantly, and the Ukrainian side has been able to make significant progress in its favor as a result of the effects that this weapon has had on the Ukrainian army. There is even a song that was written specifically for it, and it has quickly become a favorite among the soldiers in that army. This weapon, which is being referred to as the Barak turrets by the Turkish armed forces, is being discussed in great. The director, UAVs have garnered a lot of interest among the other types of UAVs. This weapon, the impact of which was also mitigated by Ukraine, was purchased from Turkey within the first few minutes of the conflict, and the practice of purchasing goods from that country is still ongoing. The ability of Barak to carry out multiple attacks in addition to kamikaze attacks distinguishes it from other types of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAV. As a result of these opportunities, the Ukrainian military has been able to inflict significant damage on the Russian military, while also acquiring invaluable intel about the situation on the ground of intelligence. Because of these capabilities, directors UAV versus stand out among other kinds of unmanned aerial vehicles. UAVs. The Barataria IVs have been of tremendous assistance to the Ukrainian side in the ongoing, gradually shifting the war's direction toward their camp as a result of their actions. The most recent action taken by Turkey provides further evidence that the war's trajectory will undergo significant change. The information that Russia's recent search for allies has yielded no results has been widely reported in the press from around the world. On the other hand, Ukraine has decided to definitively withdraw from all of its alliance. The justice of the cause, which is to defend Ukraine, is seen as a significant factor in this decision. It is believed that Russia will be dealt a significant blow as a result of Turkey's decision to accept Ukraine's offer to form an alliance. During their most recent meeting, Ukraine made the offer to form the alliance in order to thank Turkey for accepting the offer. In the past, Russia had a strong interest in transforming Turkey into a natural gas. However, Putin's plans were foiled when Ukraine and Turkey agreed to form an alliance. This played a significant role in the development of this concept at a time when Russia is cornered. Vladimir Putin is seething over the blow that he took from Turkey. As was mentioned earlier, Turkey just recently started providing aid to Ukraine through the double axis. Because of the flotillas of ships that are departing from Turkey, Putin is unable to locate a gap through which he can escape. As soon as it was discovered what Turkey intended to do, on top of Putin's fear, no one could imagine what would occur. The move that Turkey made has caused tremors all over the world, despite the fact that Ukraine is still making active use of the UAV that it brought from. Putin and his troops are incapable of even imagining what will take place when they learn that Turkey intends to install a new barracks for the Tar Av, which already has production factories in Turkey within the borders of Ukraine. This is due to the significant support that Turkey gives to Ukraine. It will become significantly more difficult for the Ukrainian Air Force to compete with the Russian Air. This advantage will have a significant bearing on the conduct of each and every operation. The only thing that Russia is doing in response to the countries that are supporting Ukraine during this time is threatening those countries. This is because Russia's government is currently unstable. In addition to mobilizing a large number of weapons to send to Ukraine, Turkey has also added another one behind these. It is believed that armored vehicles are the most effective of these various aids because Ukraine's ability to send troops to regions where there is an active conflict is one of the country's most significant challenges. Hedgehogs are well known for their invulnerability and are the subject of this conversation. They are armored vehicles because of these vehicles. The evacuating of troops to the area that requires them will be much more. It is believed that if Ukraine is able to maintain the advantage it has gained with these aids, it will strike Russia where it hurts most, in the chest. This event was interpreted as marking the beginning of the end for Russia's dominance in the Black Sea region. The region surrounding the Black Sea, which is supposedly dominated by Russia in light of the statement made by Turkey, has in fact claimed that the Black Sea is Turkish territory by virtue of the actions it has taken in its entirety. Turkey has set fleets of ships to the Black Sea in support of Ukraine, which Russia previously boasted about as a sign of its dominance in the region. The Ukraine has communicated its appreciation to the Turks for their acts. Turkey's anger was a direct result of Russia's response to Turkey's actions. It has been suggested that the primary objective of Turkey's substantial support for Ukraine is to bring an end to the military drills that Russia is currently conducting in the Black Sea. During these exercises, a tension between them had significantly increased due to a previous incident in which Russia had shot down a Turkish merchant. A significant step had been taken by Russia in the direction of erasing from their minds the concept of Black Sea dominance being mine, which Russia had been talking about everywhere. When Vladimir Putin found out about these actions taken by Turkey and its support for Ukraine, he became extremely enraged and made a significant choice. As a result of this change, he began looking for a new center in the natural gas. They were interested in determining which Turkey it was. In addition to these moves, this one was also rejected. It is anticipated that Turkey will step up its support for Ukraine. In particular, the fact that Turkey is making such significant strides in the defense industry and is willing to share its most recent innovations with Ukraine appears to play a significant role in the development of, because Turkey is a country that typically takes a neutral stance in conflicts via Or analysts believe that it is impossible for Turkey to withstand these Russian invasions and provide support to Ukraine. This is one of the reasons why the conflict has taken the direction that it has, as Turkey is a country that has always maintained its neutrality, even during World War II, but reactions have been seen in, as well as in every other country, in response to Putin's threats, the harshness of his military policies, and the disrespect he shows to his own people. The shooting of a Turkish merchant ship under the guise of an exercise had a significant impact on the situation. Despite the fact that it is unknown how much longer Russia will keep acting in this manner, NATO forces have been mobilized in response to the possibility of an attack by Russia against Turkey's assistance to. It is common knowledge that Turkey is one of the most important countries in the NATO alliance. It is common knowledge that the military might and technology that it supplies play a significant role in the decision-making process among the countries that are members of NATO. To put it another way, it is anticipated that all it would take for Turkey to start World War I would be a single word spoken in response to a hostile action taken by Russia against. The geopolitical position of Turkey in the center of the world reveals its geographical importance. Turkey is well known for maintaining a neutral stance among all of the other countries as a mediator between countries that are having issues. The role that Turkey plays is extremely important. Turkey is good. Additionally, due to its foreign policy, Japan is an indispensable. To put it another way, this is precisely why Russia and the United States are attempting to cultivate a constructive relationship with Turkey. Because Turkey is a Western country and has begun to support Ukraine, the raw proman that has taken place between Ukraine and Turkey appears to be somewhat destabilizing the situation. In the past, Turkish and Russian soldiers came into conflict with each other in Syria, despite the fact that this was in no way part of. In light of this, Ukraine has exerted a significant amount of effort to bring since the beginning of the conflict. Ukraine has been working to update their website, and their efforts appear to have paid off because Turkey views Russia as an adversary in the Black Sea. The fundamental principle upheld by the Turks is that any adversary who establishes themselves in territory that rightfully belongs to them must be exterminated without. The situation in the Black Sea will become even more precarious if Turkey does not respond to Russia's actions. There, Turkey has an obligation to demonstrate to Russia that the Black Sea is wholly and exclusively theirs. There are rumors that Turkey has already begun production of the weapons that will be used in the future, according to war analysts. Bayraktar, the most recent production in terms of air defense, has become the most powerful among the world's countries. This is because of the technology that the country has developed. The majority of Western nations, including Turkey, have continued to urge Putin to desist from his actions. People believe that it is only a matter of time before Putin, who ignores these warnings, is brought down with each nuclear threat. Putin suffers one setback after another at the hands of NATO. The entire world is pulling together in an effort to put an end to the war, and so on and so forth. You are able to show your support for us by subscribing to the Ukrainian Observation Period, War Tactics. But the oak conflicts on the front lines started to heat up just before spring officially arrived. In their final days of fighting, the Russians sustained significant casualties. The Ukrainian forces organized themselves into the most effective attack network, particularly in the Donetsk region, which is one of the most crucial centers of the conflict. There is no doubt that Beta City, located close to Bakhmut, is the center of this attack network. A little more than a week was necessary for the Ukrainian forces to complete the hold on the city. The Russians suffered the loss of 31 battle tanks in the city, which contributed to their complete loss of control of the city to the Ukrainians. In recent days, after the Russians had lost their battleships, they began to retreat towards the city's borderline. Once there, he launched a counterattack against the Ukrainians with his remaining troops, Russian fighters on the border. This conflict has been going on for several. They actually fired a dozen shots backwards to protect their fellow soldiers from the lines of bullets. It was later discovered that members of the 155th Marine Brigade were among the invaders who had fled the battlefield by running towards the Russian fighters who were stationed on the hills as they made their way through landmines on their way to their comrades who had remained on the hill in front of them. The Russian soldiers in this brigade were unaware of what they were getting themselves. Saddled in the air were some of the Russian invading soldiers who were attempting to abandon their weapons and flee the battlefield. As a result of casualties sustained in the field, the soldiers of the Russian artillery brigades communicating with the Russian military group located in the opposite region were forced to observe the unfolding events helpless. While the Russians were having a living hell in this minefield area of VDA, Ukrainian forces kept pushing all of the prisoners in this area toward the borderlines. Those Russian soldiers who were able to flee the most devastating assault of the war, which resulted in the 155th Russian Marine Brigade having more than 1,000 soldiers, could not even comprehend how they managed to sneak up on us from behind the hill. On the other hand, the Russian military's successful firing of their TOS-1 thermobaric systems on the city's outskirts was neutralized by the Ukrainian artillery brigades located there. Because the TOS-1 term of Barak systems had a range of 4 kilometers, the Russian artillery in Malato was unable to respond to the storm operation that was being conducted by the Ukrainians. As a response to these assaults, the Ukrainians dispatched the most powerful assault brigades in their army to go after the Russians, a stunning war leader who is currently on the run from his enemies. When the Ukrainian artillery brigades began destroying the military gear of the Russian soldiers who were on the outskirts of the city, those Russian soldiers began to flee the country of Valda as well, switching to the armament that had made its way through the minefield. In other words, the Russian troops that withdrew from Hungary, as well as the Russian military and hunter systems that were able to flee the minefield terrain in the face of the striking attacks launched by the Ukrainian forces, were forced to withdraw from the city and Messy as a direct consequence of these assaults. Russia was compelled to search numerous buildings for troops that had deserted their posts. A statement that was very similar to this one was issued by, according to the most recent report on the state of the war that was released by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. The Russian forces are currently searching numerous buildings in an effort to find soldiers who have deserted their ranks. The Ukrainian armed forces made the observation that large-scale operations were carried out on the Eastern Front as a result of the high rate of desertion that occurred within the ranks of the Russian occupation forces. In addition, particular focus was put on the abundance of homes and commercial establishments. The statements of a Russian soldier, on the other hand, which conveyed critical details about the attacks in Moat, Hera dropped like a bomb on the agenda as soon as they were brought up. According to his statements to Russian soldiers, 202 Russian soldiers escaped from a position near Militara in the Donetsk region with their weapons. He made this claim to the Russian soldiers. It is common knowledge that the low morale of the Russian forces contributes to the high rate of desertions that they experience. One interpretation of the high level of Russian losses is that they were all killed, and the reason for that letter was due to a number of different factors, one of which was the lack of trained personnel, coordination, and resources at the front or with. According to a statement released by Dyers Kievsky, the head of the Combined Press Center of the Tar-Risky district of the Ukrainian Defense Forces, almost the entire brigade of 5,000 people was destroyed close to Rolo, and the soldiers were either killed, wounded, or captured. We came to the conclusion that Russia's troop losses have reached enormous proportions. When we heard from a Ukrainian official named Dyers Kievsky that Russia is losing between 150 and 300 tailors per day near Valda. On the other hand, a Russian sailor who survived the recent fighting in Udar stated that the survivors were treated like deserters by their fellow service. The ill treatment was summed up in one sentence by the Marine Corps of the 155th Marine Brigade of the Pacific Fleet, which said that it would have been better if I had been captured and never returned. The sailor continued by saying that a significant number of his fellow sailors had been killed, and on a consistent basis, new ones were being. The fact that the Moscow army lost a lot of soldiers on the front lines does not present an additional challenge for Vladimir Putin, because he is attempting to camouflage the lack of soldiers in Putin's army by engaging paramilitary groups, particularly in cities on the Eastern Front. This is why the loss of a large number of soldiers on the front lines does not present an additional challenge for Vladimir. Lines like bull or back mode and soar be frequently encountered are examples of phrases frequently used by Wagner Group soldiers. The Wagner Group is a Russian paramilitary organization that is widely regarded as being Vladimir Putin's so-called private army. Comic book artists are reportedly being sought out by the organization in order to serve Russia on the front lines of. It has been suggested that Russia is being used to conceal the atrocities that have been committed in the Ukraine conflict so that Russia can maintain its plausible deniability. There are still Wagner Group soldiers involved in the conflict in Ukraine, and some of those soldiers belong to the Wagner Group. According to the data we collected, a total of 42,043,000 inmates had been recruited by the end. It's likely that there are over 50,000 at this point. During the time that Russian leader of Vladimir Putin was attempting to maintain control of the front lines, the remaining 19,000 soldiers were either killed, wounded, fled, deserted, or surrendered. Currently, only 10,000 of these soldiers are engaged in combat at the front lines. In spite of the casualties, Ukraine made statements that would have a catastrophic impact on. The date that Ukraine's counterattack against Russia will begin during the ongoing war has been announced by Ukraine. A potential timeline was laid out by Anton Chenko, an advisor to the Minister of the Interior of Ukraine, shortly after Ukrainian and Western officials discussed that Kiev planned to launch an. According to Chenko, he anticipates that Western equipment will be acquired in order to launch the Ukrainian counteroffensive. The United States and Germany have both made public statements stating that they intend to deliver a number of main battle tanks to Ukraine, specifically M1 Abrams and Leopard 2 models. Additionally, it was announced that the United Kingdom would be providing Kiev with 14 of its Challenger 2 main battle. The governments of Denmark, Germany, and the Netherlands have reached an agreement to provide Ukraine with up to 178 decommissioned Leopard 105 tanks, the majority of which were produced during the height of the Cold War. According to some sources, only 50 tanks will make it to the front lines in Ukraine by the beginning of April, despite the fact that Kiev anticipates its allies will supply a total of up to 320 Western tanks to the country. Aside from tanks, the United States, France, and Germany made a commitment just 1 month ago to provide Ukraine with a large number of brand new armored infantry fighting vehicles. In addition, to Chen reiterated the fact that in order to help his country requires hundreds of thousands of warplanes. Shenko pointed out that drones have a much lower price tag than tanks, which enables Ukraine to destroy Russian forces at a long range without coming into direct combat contact. This is Ukraine's top priority in its fight against. In a separate turn of events, the British ambassador in Kiev, Vadi Krikos, issued a statement in which he claimed that NATO countries are teaching and training Ukrainian troops abroad in preparation for an attack on the Contra that is being planned by Kiev. They had the training necessary to use them effectively against Russian troops in a new. Western states are under urgent pressure to take decisive action in order for Ukraine to launch an offensive against the Russian occupying forces. As the temperature rises, the conflict in Ukraine will enter a new phase, bringing with it new challenges. Russia is attempting to make up for the significant losses it sustained over the course of the winter season. Now that spring has, bullets are already being manufactured at a factory in Russia that is operational. Iranian is without a doubt the most significant and important key figure that the Russian leader trusts. Kamikaze-made drones have been wreaking havoc on Ukrainian cities for the past year. There is a significant chance that Russia will continue to employ this strategy in the future, taking into account all of these dangers. The Western nations really ought to hurry up and get the promised military supplies shipped over to Ukraine. When the Ukraine finally acquires the Western hardware it so desperately needs, it will be in a position to launch an assault with relative ease against Russia.